Birds are fast and alert. The question is the flying type in Pokemon? The only way of knowing is to throw a hardcore rule set and try and beat Pokemon Violet using only them. I decide to pick up the duck, but it turns out someone has clipped its wings so we can't use it. Traveling a bit further, I can find my actual star, which is going to be a fletchling. We catch it and give it the name Flamingo. Why couldn't you be a flying type? The next Pokemon doesn't really have much wings. It's going to be Flamingo. We catch it and give it the name Pigeon. Now, this Nemona fight is normally a doddle. However, she's got an electric terror type, so flying may struggle. Oh, never mind then. We absolutely fly through it. We can then find ourselves a Rookidee, and even with the game glitching out, we do still manage to get the capture. Going a bit further, we're gonna run into Hoppip, and I end up giving it the name Crow. And with that done, we've got enough of a team for us to take on Katie. Oh, well, that was easy. And now we have to take on the big scary crab. It ends up rock smashing me, which unfortunately does lower my defense. However, my low kick does major damage to it. The only downside is it activates his anger shell. He just ends up blocking me, therefore it really didn't matter and we just win this with ease. And the next thing is Brassius and his grass types. With no surprise to you all, both Petlil and his Smoliv fall to just one wing attack apiece. Sudowoodo takes about a third from that attack, and then it goes on to Trailblaze me, doing about 9 damage, but upping its speed. The next turn, it's more of the same, however, this time I've knocked them into the red. It's now faster, so it rock throws me, however, my fighting type makes it neutral, and then on top of that, I fed myself an Oran Berry just in case he was going for a few. At the end of the day, that didn't matter though, because I used my wing attack, and guess what? He is gone, and that is Brassius down. Seems the grass isn't always greener, especially when we chop it down. Right after this fight, Fletchling is ready to evolve. You majestic creature. I must have you. I evolve Seagull into a Corviknight, and then Crow is ready to evolve into a Skiploom. Traveling a bit further, we're gonna find an Oricorio. We catch it and give it the name Eagle. Come down here and fight me like a man. Eventually, I get in a battle and I catch it and give it the name Sparrow. That done does mean it's now time to face the big bird, the member of our team we want the most, but first, we've got to take him on in his Titan form. I terrestrialize as that flying type is only going to be detrimental in this battle, and then I end up using Feather Dance. This is going to harshly lower its attack, and I do this because it's going to hit hard otherwise. It just plucks and steals my Oran Berry off me. I then Feather Dance again. It's now at -4, and that means the rock throw that it's about to use doesn't do an awful lot of damage to me. I decide it's now time to switch out, and I go into Sparrow, who gets hit with a wing attack on the switch in. It plucks yet again, stealing another one of my berries, but this time I'm gonna hit it back. I hit it with a spark for about a third. It wing attacks me again, so I hit it with a spark and knock it into the red. And the previous turn goes the exact same this time round, except this is now the end of the first phase. Unfortunately though, we do not get a chance to heal before starting the second one. I do the exact same as the first phase, hoping he's not going to hit me though, and I manage to lower his attack while he attacks into Knackley, allowing Knackley to get a bit of damage off and us to go unscathed. Next turn, he does actually pay attention to us. The Bombardier is going to use a wing attack on us, however, at this point we've got it to -4, and Knackley's just doing some good damage to it. I decide to go for the third one just to get it to -6. That allows us to switch about and let Knackley finish it off if we need to. However, it just goes for a Torment against me, and now Knackley is going to knock it into the yellow. At this point, we're low enough health where a crit is scary, so I decide to switch out. We go into Flamigo on a wing attack. However, Knackley is going to knock it within 1 shot. Next turn, I decide to play it as safe as possible, and I actually go for a Detect in order to protect myself from the wing attack. However, Knackley has finally let us down by missing a rock throw. Next turn, it doesn't end up mattering though, as it plucks into Knackley. This allows me to use a wing attack, and we have finally beaten this beast of a bird. Now, We want a Titan on our team, so let's catch this bugger. Upon catching it, I give it the name Pelican. Now, Giacomo is nice and easy, providing you've got a fighting type on your team. I overleveled it, didn't I? Might as well get another team member then, and we can find a Swablu. I catch it, and I give it the name Dave. And with all that done, let's move on to the first team star battle, being Giacomo. I start off with Crow, who misses a sleep powder and almost gets annihilated by an aerial ace. Thankfully, the next turn, the sleep powder does manage to hit, and that's going to allow me to stay safe this turn. I then decide to set up a leech seed, and he does stay asleep this turn, so we survive. I then misclick and go for another leech seed. Thankfully, I'm not punished as he stays asleep. I then do what I meant to do and go for a synthesis. This is going to get my health back. Unfortunately, it's going to disappear right away as the Pawniard wakes up and aerial aces me. I then use another sleep powder, and thankfully for me, it does manage to connect. Now, I was planning on sacking Crow here, but it's done a brilliant job, so we're just going to let it live and bring out Oricorio. I decide to use a Trailblaze as I want to get my speed up, but Pawniard wakes up and aerial aces me. I then Trailblaze again, but I get unlucky. I actually managed to get a critical hit on this. This means that after he hits me, he's actually going to go down to Leech Seed damage, and this sucks because I wanted to baton pass into something that could use Sword Stance and get one of them off. Luck is on my side though. He actually misses the metal sound he was going to use. This allows me to get off a Feather Dance. This is important. He then snarls, which doesn't do an awful lot of damage to me, and lowering my special attack, I don't care. I use a Trailblaze as I want one more speed up. He then uses Snarl yet again, and this time I'm finally going to get that baton pass off because it's now or never. And on that, I'm gonna bring in Seagull. Seagull gets snarled, which lowers the special attack and crits, which isn't brilliant. However, it's fine. I just wanted to get off a Leer. It's then gonna hit me with a metal sound, lowering my special defense as I lower its defense yet again. I then switch into Bombardier, who takes a snarl tremendously well. It ends up switching to Swift, which doesn't do much damage as well, as I wing attack for decent. Same on the next turn, except this time it's lower than half health. It then decides to finally metal sound me. However, it's too little too late. I've knocked it within one shot with this wing attack. It then desperately tries to Swift, but unfortunately, even a crit would not save it from this final blow, and that is the first team star member down. I was a bit unlucky and a bit lucky, so I really can't complain. Look, Iono's saying you should shock that subscribe button. I am thankful to her for that, but she is our next hurdle and we can't take it easy on her. Bombardier's Rocky Payload ability does make it so Wattrel will be one shot by Rock Throw. I then Torment the Belly Bolt. This is going to stop it from using Spark constantly, but unfortunately it does crit me with the Spark it uses. I then get a crit of my own with my Drill Run. Not that it mattered though, as it can only use Water Gun and we're guaranteed to take it out on the next turn. But Bombardier didn't care. It gets another crit, which means it must have just had some hate for this little blob. Luxio can hold on because it intimidated me. However, its Spark isn't enough to finish me off. Knowing it's going for a Spark, I can safely switch out into Sparrow, who actually has the Bolt Absorb ability, making me immune. It then bites me, doing decent damage as my Spark just misses out on the KO. Thankfully, he doesn't end up getting a flinch on me, and this is going to allow me to pluck and get rid of this bugger. Now, if you have an electric immunity, as well as a normal type for the ghost immunity, Miss Magius can't touch you. I then switch between until I can finally attack because she's got no more attacks that can touch Sparrow, but she actually ends up struggling herself to death. That's something amazing. And for all its hard work, Sparrow can finally evolve into a Killer Wattrel. I then head seabound and run into a Wingull, and then upon catching it, give it the name Goose. It has the wrong ability though. Still, a Pelipper is quite useful, so let's get him evolved. Our new team member gets an instant debut as the next person we're fighting is Mela. I start off by using a Rain Dance. This is going to make the incoming Flame Wheel be basically useless. I then mess up by Terastallizing. I thought I had the Water Terra type looking at it, I was actually misinformed. I had the flying one. Thankfully, it doesn't end up mattering because Torkoal goes down in one anyway. Even without the resistance though, Overheat doesn't do anything in the rain and our Surf knocks it for more than 50%. And that's gonna mean that it is game over before I even had to set up a second rain dance. After this, we're gonna have the Earthworm battle. Flamethrower nearly kills it as it hits me with a headbutt. Obviously the headbutt doesn't do much, and on top of that halves its attack thanks to Flame Body. That burn truly did not matter though, because guess what? One more flamethrower and it's down. That done is going to allow us to get right on into the 4th gym challenge. That's going to be Kofu. Both the loser and Wug Trio can't really do much to us. The Wug Trio gets a headbutt off, but they both get one-shot by Electro Balls once I'm terastallized. As you can see, Crabroll is guaranteed to go down to an Electro Ball. Oh, this isn't good. As you can see, this thing's guaranteed to kill me. I'm sorry we couldn't save you, Sparrow. Oh, it missed! I actually didn't have a clue how my calcs were off until a lot after this battle. I only thought back to it, like, towards the end game, and I'll be honest, it's because I put the speed in incorrect because I knew I'd be faster than it. Always double check your calculators, boys. We were insanely lucky not to lose something there, and it was just that. Luck. A fluke. And with that, let us get into the next team star battle, being against Atticus and his poison types. He tries to sucker punch me, but it fails because I'm going for Swords Dance. That's because I want my attack up. I want to be maxed out, so I do it again, and that's going to ensure that he uses a Toxic against me. Not that it ends up mattering though, as I have a Petra Berry to cure that poison. I finally make it to +6, and this time the Toxic is going to stick because I don't have a secondary berry. Lucky for me, I hadn't planned on staying in, as I'm going to Baton Pass and I'm going to bring Fletchinder out. I then decide to go for an agility. This is because I actually have a berry held and I want to be faster than the stuff coming out. Therefore, I do this, the Toxic comes along and I cure it with my Petra straight away. Both Skunk Tank and Muck don't really stand a chance against me. It just takes 1 acrobatics for both of them to go down. Then, against his Reveroom, I decide to Flame Charge, not only because this will take it out, but it gives me a speed boost. We then have the Starmobile, and Acrobatics does amazing damage to it. However, because I'm faster, it opts to use Flame Charge, which does nothing at all to me. It then hits me with a Noxious Torque, which does actually manage to get a poison off. Now, this normally would have been the end of me. However, you don't get poison damage if it's the last turn, so an Acrobatics makes sure that we survive. And although it was incredibly close, 3 HP and poison to the point we would have died, we have made it through. And for all that hard work, it'd be rude not to allow it to evolve into a Talonflame. My stomach rumbled enough to the point where all these tables and chairs disappear. The owner wasn't too happy though. He actually ends up battling us because we've ruined his restaurant. I start off by using a Swords Dance as he ends up going for a Yawn. I then end up using another one, but this time he's going to end up using Slam against me. This does an awful lot of damage, and on top of that, I go to sleep. At least the sleep is curable with my Chesto Berry though. At this point, I can't survive. I need to use Baton Pass to switch out, and I switch into my Talonflame, who tanks the Slam moderately decently. I then end up setting one final Swords Dance up because a Slam wouldn't take me out here, but it doesn't matter as they go for Yawn. I then end up using Flail. This is because this is the only move I have that won't take out the Kamala, and even though it does big damage, it means I'm put to sleep and my berry can be used. This is incredibly important. No more time for stalling though, we've got to take this Kamala out. And the reason losing that berry is important is so Acrobatics does full damage and Oko's the Dunsparce. And even with the Intimidate from Staraptor, we do still one-shot the little bugger. I can't believe we're in the mountains and this dude is wearing sandals. And before the next gym, we want to get ourselves a hold of a Corviknight. What a brilliant Pokemon to have. Now the team is fully evolved, we can take on the 6th gym leader being Rhyme and her ghost types. Her Mimikyu and Banette double up into my Corviknight with Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak respectively. I use a Rock Throw to break Mimikyu's disguise, and then I use a Steel Wing into Banette. Luckily, I get a cheeky little defense boost. I then managed to get some leftovers recovery. In the meantime, the crowd is cheering us on, so we're getting a load of stat boosts. They then decide to double whammy my Corviknight yet again. That's very rude, guys. I then end up wiping the banana off the face of the planet with a payback. And Mimikyu thought it was clever as well, but I'm going to Steel Wing into that, and that fairy typing is going to cost it its life. Toxtricity doesn't stand a chance against my Pelican's payback. Steel Wing doesn't do enough to take out Houndstone, but its Play Rough doesn't do it to me either. And then one final blow with a dark move is gonna finish off this gym. Iron Treads, even with a crit, doesn't do much damage to me, and guess what? It almost gets wiped out with one Surf. Obviously, there is literally nothing it can do, and we just finish it off the next turn. I'll tell you what, in this challenge, our Bombardier has a hell of a stance. Doesn't it look fabulous? And then, after this, we're gonna have the Tulip battle. The Psychic types can be pretty strong, but can we get past them with ease? I lead by using Bulk Up. This raises my attack and defense. However, I'm then going to get crunched. That crunch manages to get the chance of lowering my defense, and it does hit here. I repeat the exact same thing this turn, and it does crunch me again, but it's not doing much with a defense boost. And on top of that, I've got my leftovers on, so leftovers are giving me a decent bit of recovery. I do one more. However, this time it's opted to go for Reflect. I just got to the point where I could KO it, but that Reflect stops me in my tracks. Here, I'm going to use one last Bulk Up. I'm now at +4, and as you can see, the crunch is doing nothing. I then go for an Agility as I want a bit of a spring in my step. And from here, I can solo this entire gym with a move called Power Trip. It's a pretty interesting move as it's actually based on my stats being raised as to what the base power of it is. And now we can travel a bit further, and we're actually going to run into a Vivillon. I end up catching it and giving it the name of Robin. Now, in these games, egg moves aren't actually egg moves. They're passed on through picnics. You give one Pokemon a Mirror Herb, and it will learn the move. As you can see, I've given Oricorio Quiver Dance using this method. And with that move, we can now head on to the final gym leader, being Grusha and his Ice types. Quiver Dance on a Fire type is all you need here, though. Obviously, Frostmoth is going to start by using Tailwind to try and be faster, but we're raising our speed with our Quiver Dances, as well as special defense and attack. At +2, Blizzard does so little to us that we can just go all the way to +6 if we want. I actually only needed +5 on this in order to take it down. As you can see, I'm level 45 as well, well under the level cap, but at this point, it's enough to take them all on. And ironically enough, the only one that might have lived was Altaria, but unfortunately that terrestrialization ruins it. There's nothing between the final gym and Ortega, so how about we get on with it straight away? I start off by using a Bulk Up, and he decides to use an Aqua Tail. Now, this thing does decent damage to me. I end up bulking up again, but this time he's going to use Charm against me, and that's actually going to make it so I have neutralized attack. It kind of keeps repeating until I'm at +6 on my defense, but neutral attack. I then end up going for Agility to get my speed up. Unfortunately for me, though, he keeps Charming. Once I'm maxed out on speed, I get back to bulking up because I want neutral attack by the time I finish this thing off. He does eventually switch to Bounce as well, which helps me because he's got to take a turn out. And then eventually he will knock me low enough to the point where I'm able to eat my Figgy Berry and get to somewhat decent health again. Now I'm neutral, I decide to Iron Head. Doesn't really do too much damage, and then it charms me on top of that. I just go for Iron Heads as every Bulk Up is negating, so there's no point until I've got him in the red. I can then use Bulk Up again, and he decides to go for a Bounce. This means next turn I can do the exact same thing. And now my attack's neutral. I don't want him to charm me again, so I just finish it off. I Iron Head the Dash Bun, and it retaliates by using a Crunch. One more Iron Head is going to finish off the little doggy. One attack does nearly take out the Wigglytuff. However, it just tends to tickle us back, doing only 6 damage. Since it's in the red, one more little Shun and Wigglytuff goes down. My Iron Head actually does some pretty good damage to this Starmobile. Meanwhile, his Steel Roller barely touches us. His Magical Talk also doesn't really do much to us, but on the one it uses, as I've got it to a Slither, it manages to confuse me. Now, in this game, I get incredibly unlucky with confusions, therefore I decide to switch into Talonflame. Unfortunately, on the switch in, the exact same thing happens. I decide to chance it because even if I hit myself, I won't go down, and I do hit through, getting the flame charge, and that is gonna mean that we have beaten the fairy leader. Maybe a bit unjustly. Honestly, I forgot about the charm when setting up, so it was all winging it. And now it is time for the final Titan battle. Obviously, it's gonna be Dondozo. I start off by using a discharge, and this is brilliant because not only does it get a crit, it gets a paralysis, and then it gets stuck in paralysis, so doesn't touch us. And from here, a Volt Switch is gonna finish it up, obviously. However, that's not gonna be the end. We have to face Tatsugiri. I end up using double Wing Beak as Discharge is gonna harm the Greedent, and I don't really want to harm the Greedent at this point. Then it'll Dragon Pulse into Greedent, and Greedent will retaliate with a takedown. I'm then gonna manage to get another dual Wing Beat off. This time it opts to use an Icy Wind, which isn't brilliant as it's gonna mean I'm slower than it. However, at the end of the turn, we have at least knocked it into the yellow. Now, I know I'm going to go down to another Icy Wind, so I switch into someone who will actually be neutral against it. However, this is the end of Arven's Greedent. Expecting a water move, I terrestrialize into my flying type and use an acrobatics. However, it must have known that I was doing this as it goes for an Icy Wind. I'm also slower, so I can't risk anything now. I switch into Bombardier, hoping it can take a hit, but it does do more than half damage with the Muddy Water. I then switch into Pelipper, again expecting a Muddy Water, but it calls me yet again using an Icy Wind, which is neutral. It then knocks me low with a Muddy Water. However, at least I can get an attack off. I use a wing attack and knock it incredibly low. I then can't stay in because obviously we're one shot. Therefore, I switch into Oricorio on a Dragon Pulse, which does amazing damage. Because it didn't use Icy Wind, that does mean I'm faster than it. I actually managed to take this out, and I had some poor planning. Phew! Now we've had something hard, let's go on to something easy. Eri and the fighting types. Obviously, we have a major advantage here, so we should be hunky-dory. I use Bulk Ups, and it tries to go for Brick Break. But honestly, even with these Brick Breaks, I've got my leftovers to recover health, and I'm getting defense, so I can fully set up. Once I'm maxed out, I can just start using some agilities, get into my max speed, and then we're just going to be sweeping through the entire thing. Really no issue whatsoever. Now I'm able to run into a Bagon. I catch it and I end up giving it the name Butterfly. After this, it can evolve into Shelgon and Salamence respectively. And with that, let us get on to the Clavell fight. I hit Oranguru with a payback and it retaliates by using a Yawn. The next payback is gonna take the Oranguru down. He does end up falling asleep due to boredom, but thankfully my Chesto Berry wakes him right back up again. His next Pokemon, Abominusno, takes amazing damage from my acrobatics as it sets up an Aurora Veil. Unfortunately for it doesn't mean that it isn't going down on the next turn. Acrobatics doesn't do much, and then it hits me with a Stone Edge. Thankfully, I terrestrialize to the point where it doesn't take me out. Next turn, I decide to use Parting Shot. This is going to lower both its attacks, and it actually allows me to switch out. The Pokemon I'm going to be switching into is going to be Corviknight, who doesn't take too much damage and has leftovers to get a bit of health back anyway. It ends up hitting me with an Aqua Tail, which does decent damage, but I'm bulking up to negate anything it's going to be doing to me. I'm then going to use another one. It then misses a Stone Edge against me, which is actually really good because I'm going to Drill Peck here. Doesn't quite take it out, but if anything happens, I at least have an easy out away from this Gyarados. I then set up an Agility, and I'm just going to keep bulking up until I'm ready to take it out. Once I am ready, it is literally a complete annihilation of all his team. They can only stand by and watch as I wipe the floor with them. Crow then becomes a Skiploom, and at the same time, Dave gets a bit jealous, so he becomes an Altaria. And with that, we are ready to take on the Pokemon League. The first one is gonna be Rika and his ground types. I start off by setting up some Stealth Rocks. He retaliates with a Blizzard, but honestly, it doesn't do that much considering it's super effective. I then Parting Shot out, lowering its attacks, and I bring in Oricorio, who absolutely champs a Blizzard. Like, this thing barely touched him, and he's not even got stat boosts yet. I Quiver Dance to start getting my stat boost as he hits me with a Muddy Water. Now, this thing actually does quite a bit of damage considering he's got load attack and I've got plus defense. It's an exact mirror turn the next one, except I take a bit less damage thanks to another special defense boost. And why not go for another one? Let's get as boosted as we can. This time we are knocked into the red. However, I've thought of this. I equipped a Figgy Berry and I'm actually going to get the majority of my health back once this turn is over. At this point, let's be honest, he really can't touch me. My defense is just that high. And with all that done, it is finally time to Baton Pass. I'm too low to stay in, therefore I'm gonna bring in Goose. I'm then gonna set up the rain, because if it isn't dirty enough, we might as well make it a bit dirtier. I then proceed to surf through this entire team up until the point we get to his ace, that Pokemon being Clodsire. I then wing attack Clodsire because I can't hit with my water moves thanks to its ability Water Absorb, and I know it's going to protect, therefore I get a free switch in to Talonflame. My Acrobatics does some pretty good damage, but it does end up toxicing me. Skipping past its turn of protect, I can then use the power of Terrestrialization to Acrobatics and finish off the Clodsire, beating the first Elite Four member. It's now time that we take on Poppy and bring back our old friend Flamigo. I then end up using a Bulk Up, but it actually manages to use Play Rough and do some pretty severe damage to me. I end up bulking up again, and plus Terrestrializing means that I lose that fighting type. I should survive. However, it doesn't end up mattering as the Play Rough misses. I roost in order to get half my health back as it hits me with a Heavy Slam and does some decent damage to me. I roost again, but this time they are finally going to set up the Stealth Rocks. Now, I was expecting that first turn, not like fifth. Another Bulk Up is going to make it so a Heavy Slam doesn't end up doing as much damage as it did before. And one last one, meaning that he's going to Heavy Slam and we're going to survive on 69 health. Nice. I then opt to use a close combat, and this is going to wipe the floor with the Copperaja, but it does lower my defenses. Negated by the Bulk Ups, fair enough. Against Magnezone, I opt to use Double Kick just because it's got that pesky little sturdy ability. Although Corviknight does manage to get neutrality with a close combat, it is still gonna go down. You can literally repeat exactly what I've just said about Corviknight for Bronzong, and it is the exact same. Tinkaton, however, is a different story. It's faster than me, therefore I need to switch out. I choose Salamence just to get an Intimidate off. The Gigaton Hammer actually did a lot of damage to me, therefore I decide to use a Protect as I do not want it to take me out with a Stone Edge. Now, I was expecting it to use a Gigaton Hammer here, so I switched into Bombardier. However, it Stone Edged me. Thankfully, no crit, so we're all good. I then use Parting Shot. This is so I'm able to switch out, and I decide to come into Corviknight, who manages to tank it beautifully. It then ends up Brick Breaking, but that's fine because I'm just going to bulk up. We see the third Gigaton Hammer make its appearance as I use a second bulk up. I then decide it's time to attack, so I shrug off a Stone Edge and use a Power Trip into it, dealing half damage. And then, unfortunately for her, this is gonna be the last turn she gets as I Power Trip one more time and say goodbye. I then give Oricorio some yellow nectar in order to make it into an electric type before Larry. That done is going to mean one thing though. We've got to do Larry round 2. I then set up a Quiver Dance. Now, obviously this works very well for me up in all my stats. He sets up a Sunny Day though, which is gonna double his speed. But Tropius sucks. You can see here, this is one Quiver Dance and it's doing no damage to me. This literally means I can set up to my heart's content and completely sweep his entire team using Revelation Dance. A move which I think is beautiful when I use it, horrible when others do. I then decide Oricorio deserves the purple nectar to get that fancy ghost typing. That done is going to mean that we are at the last of the Elite Four members being Hassel. He ends up air slashing me, doesn't do too much, and on top of that I set up Quiver Dance as he only knows special moves. I can then do 2 more while taking very minimal damage from him. Realistically, I'd have liked another one, but I'm too low health at this point, so I Baton Pass out and I bring in Altaria, who takes some pretty big damage from the incoming Dragon Pulse. Moonblast then manages to one-shot both the Noivern and the Flapple that he sends out afterwards. Dragalge, on the other hand, actually tanks it incredibly well and hits me with a Dragon Pulse for good damage. I hit him again with another Moonblast, but this time I terrestrialized, so he isn't super effective against me. And then one more is gonna finish it off and take the Dragalge down. Haxorus cannot withstand one, so it goes down in just one move. Because we didn't get the fourth Quiver Dance, we don't actually one-shot Excalibur, and it'll take us out from here. Therefore, I switch into Talonflame to try and tank an Icicle Crush. From there, I'm going to switch out. I bring out Bombardier, who just holds on after we get hit with a Terra-boosted Glaive Rush. From there, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to Parting Shot. And I'm going to Parting Shot into Salamence, whose Intimidate will go off, also getting a lowered attack. At this point, I should just manage to hold on. It misses though, so it didn't matter anyway. I then decide to switch out into Corviknight, as this is the Pokemon I wanted in. And it misses us yet again. Because it's not doing too much damage to us, I decide to set up a couple of Bulk Ups and an Agility. I do get flinched a couple times in between, but I only really need 2 Bulk Ups, 1 Agility, and we've won. From here, we get a Power Trip, and it actually crits. This normally would have been 2 shots, but it saves us a turn, so I'm not going to complain, and that is the Elite Four finished. I decided it would be harsh to not have the final Oricorio, therefore I give it the Nectar just before Gita. And now that's it, we're done waiting. Let's take on champion Gita herself. Gita hits me pretty heavily with a Dazzling Gleam, and I retaliate by using Knockoff. Unfortunately, this crits and I take it down. I kind of wanted to do a bit of setup here, but it is what it is. With King Gambit, I Parting Shot to get out of there and bring in Oricorio. Unfortunately, it ends up going for Stone Edge. I was kind of hoping it'd miss if it did go for that, but it hits me incredibly heavy. It's not got great special, so I decide to go for a Terra-boosted Revelation Dance. Unfortunately for me, it just manages to hold on. That's going to mean a Kowtow Cleave takes me out, and that's the first death of the run. Corviknight then comes out for free. That's going to allow us to use a Bulk Up, which makes it so he doesn't end up doing too much damage to us. I'm still really healthy when I get some amazing stats. From here, all it is going to take is for me to use 5 Power Trips. That's literally all it takes. The only one that could withstand us was Avalugg, and it body presses, so it doesn't do much damage. And then we get the win. We have become champion, but it's not over yet. That Corviknight strategy is going to take down Penny, Nemona, and Arven. Honestly, it's an incredibly powerful strategy, just to the point where if you don't have a decent mon up front, you're gonna get taken out. And all of that done is going to mean one thing. We can finally start to take on Area 0. We then find an Iron Jugulus. I'm then going to catch it, and I'm gonna give it the name Canary. That done is going to make it so that we are finally able to do the last battle, and that is Professor Toro. He hits me with a Sludge Wave, which is unfortunate because it manages to poison me. However, I can retaliate with Zen Headbutt, and we are gonna KO it. Now, against Iron Bundle, I end up protecting. This is a mistake as it goes for Snowscape. Although I do get knocked low with the poison, and that's going to allow my Figgy Berry to activate. Not that it matters though, as it crits me the next turn. Losing that flying type, I would have just held on, but unfortunately not to a crit. I then bring in Kilowattrel, but that thing literally gets the floor wiped. For some reason, it Snowscapes against Corviknight. I think it's because it can't do much damage, so it's not attacking us. But my Body Press doesn't exactly do much either. It then keeps spamming it, and I'm just going to keep going for Bulk Ups until it stops doing this. I can also get an Agility up, because I might as well be faster than it. I'm actually at crazy stat boost by the time they eventually knock me low. Like, seriously, them Snowscapes really cost Turo. His Bundle and his Iron Jugulus are gonna go down to 1-shot respectively. Hands does manage to fake me out. However, that really doesn't matter, as he damages me less than I recover from my leftovers. It then ends up surviving a Drill Peck, quite surprising, but Thunder Punch doesn't take us out. And that is going to be the end of this story. Corviknight truly is the MVP and won us the entire run.